Hey, welcome on in. It is lunch with Claibs and Joe here on claibsonline.com. Another Monday afternoon coming your way. And Claibs, hey, it's the middle of September. The Cardinals once again found themselves in the middle of a playoff race.
It never ceases to amaze me that just when you want to throw another shovel of dirt on them, that they find a way to get back in it. And yeah, they're in it. And the question is, will the pitching hold up? And I think that could be said for virtually every team that's contending right now. Do they have enough pitching? But it's been fun to watch.
It absolutely has been. We'll get into more of what we saw this past weekend and everything coming up this week. Two really good opponents on the Cardinals schedule this week, but want to let you know that we are driven to you each and every week here by Munganast St. Louis Acura, also powered by Ameren, Illinois, and sponsored by Ryan Kelly, the home loan expert. Find him online at thehomeloanexpert.com. Claibs, I want to give a plug to our friends over at Munganast, Jamie Burkhart over there at Munganast Alton Toyota, also the GM over there at St. Louis Acura. I went Saturday and I rented a minivan from the Alton Toyota store, and it's a 2021 Toyota Sienna. This thing is absolutely loaded. I mean, the screen that it has there on the dashboard is bigger than my computer. The other all the little bells and whistles that they have in there, it's absolutely incredible because starting tomorrow, Claves, I am going to be venturing out on it's going to be around 2,400 miles of a road trip, about 35 hours of driving, leaving tomorrow at 5 a.m., getting back Sunday night as I make my way up north and then out west and then back down. Gonna be stopping at the Field of Dreams tomorrow and then going up to Target Field for a baseball game up there before going and running a half marathon at Mount Rushmore and Omaha, Nebraska this weekend.
Sounds like a pretty heavy week for you, but it's good that you're riding in one of the Munganast cars because I've had a chance to do it as well. And here's a neat thing that people might want to take into account. If you've ever tried to rent a car recently, it can be a little bit of a challenge. Going over to Munganast and checking them out, I think you have a better selection and you'll have better service and it'll be a better car because this one won't be run all over the world like some of these rental agencies are, and they jack up the price because of the demand. So I would start there, and I think that's a smart move on your part. And I know you'll be safe and you'll be efficient, and you'll have a lot of fun behind the wheel of one of those cars.
Had a listener text me a few weeks ago, message me, and said that he went and rented a car from Alton Toyota, Munganast Alton Toyota, and said it was 65% less than what Enterprise and Budget were giving him prices for. So there you go. It's you're going to save money over at Munganast Alton Toyota. We will be there. We'll be at Munganast Alton Toyota next Monday doing the show from there after I guess I'll return the van after I drive it all over the Midwest. One last trip there. But hey, the Cardinals are on the road after a very nice weekend this past weekend. 2 out of 3 against the Reds. A sweep would have been real nice, but 2 out of 3 gets them right back in there in the race. The Padres had a very bad weekend against the Dodgers. 1 game out right now, trailing the Padres and the Reds. One thing that jumped out at me this weekend is I think people started to realize, and me included, I'll throw myself in there, Claibs. You've watched every game this year, so I don't know if it snuck up on you the way it did on me. The season that Nolan Arenado is having, 30 home runs, right now 96 RBIs. He's going to get to 100 RBIs, and I think he's still upset with his production this year, but those are exactly the numbers that you wanted to see from him when they went out and
Yeah.
traded for him.
Yeah, that's a great point you make. And I think you and I talked about this a couple of weeks ago. If you look at his road numbers when he was with Colorado, this is kind of way they lined up as far as the average was concerned. Now, obviously, the home runs are something we see no matter what, and he's giving you exactly what you thought you were hoping for. And Goldschmidt's somewhat in that vicinity too. The challenge is we've had some other guys who haven't produced on a consistent basis, but overall, the deal looks good on paper, and now we've seen it on the field.
Yeah, and I think as it gets closer, as we start to see those games dwindle down even more on the schedule, and if the Cardinals find themselves in that wild card, or even in a game 163 to head to that,
Or
I think,
164. You know
yeah,
what, Joe? This thing could be. We could have a 4 or 5 way tie with this thing before it's all said and done.
I want to see it. I want to see all the chaos. I know I know that makes for a lot of extra work for you and games that you have to call and everything. I want all the chaos that there is. I want to see Monday, Tuesday. I want to see it all for that, with the Cardinals and the managers having to piece together who's going to throw when.
I would like to see it also. For that very reason, I'm an anarchy guy to a point. So it would be fun. It'll be interesting. And you know what we do? You pack a suitcase for multiple days in multiple climates. Is what I always do. So it's going to be fun down the stretch. And again, it's going to come back to pitching. And just as you just touched on the fact that maybe we play Monday and Tuesday and maybe Wednesday, so you better have some arms ready to go. And where you don't have anywhere to get them from. I mean, this is what it is. Once that roster is locked in. So I'm anxious to see how things unfold.
Speaking of pitching, you saw another quality outing out of John Lester this weekend.
Hmm.
And Ben Frederickson put it in his column that, we knew that when they traded for Lester, it was kind of just a, get us to the end of the season, save some of our younger arms, and just go out there and pitch, and we'll take whatever. But now that he's starting to rack up a few more, take away that first inning of him in a Cardinal uniform, and everything looks pretty good that he's gone out there and done. Ben Frederickson kind of threw the idea out there of why not keeping John Lester around for 2022, because you're going to need arms. You always need arms. If he's right there, if he's already in your facility, just keep him there one more year and see where he fits in.
I think I'm gonna roll with that. I think I would agree that this needs to be a discussion. Um, and I'd say the same thing for Jay Happ because the Cardinals are not as deep as you may think from a pitching standpoint, or people who can help them right now. So if you need some guys that kind of hold the line until the cavalry arrives, I'm not opposed to that. I do think they're going to have to go out and get a pitcher outside the organization for next year who can give you 160 innings. But there may be a place for those guys as well. You don't want to have too many geezers around, but if you know how to utilize them, where maybe they don't give you as many innings as maybe they'd like to, but the quality is what you're looking for, who knows? I think there's a lot of work that has to be done this offseason with regard to how your pitching is going to look next year. And I think you have to include those guys in the conversation.
I like that you used the word geezer, especially when looking at tonight's ball game in New York, Mets and Cardinals. It will be the first time that we will see two 40-year-olds face each other since Bartolo Colon versus R.A. Dickey. Two guys that I bet a team could sign tomorrow, and they could go out there and give you 6 innings if you need them, knowing that Bartolo Colon's still somewhere pitching to some league or backyard or whatever, and R.A. Dickey's just going to go up there and throw knuckleballs. So you got Rich Hill tonight against Adam Wainwright in what Rich Hill is calling the AARP game. Two guys that, Adam Wainwright has just kind of stuck around and gotten better with age. And Rich Hill, we've seen over the last 3-4 years, kind of had a resurgence in his career.
Yeah, you know what? It says a lot about not only their mental makeup, but the physical makeup, and being able to know what lane to swim in and just do what you're capable of doing on that level. Neither one of these guys is going to overpower you with velocity, but they have great location, great movement. And as we are seeing firsthand, that seems to be hard to hit, especially when it comes out of Adam Wainwright's hand this year.
The Mets right now are 3 games back in the wild card. So 2 games back for the of the Cardinals. And as you look though at the places at where these two teams are, it seems like the Mets are where the Cardinals were about a month ago, where
Hmm.
it seems like they are just frustrating the hell out of their fan base. They are struggling in a few different aspects of the game, where the Cardinals might have figured it out at this point. But you look at what the Mets are doing. They're managed to stay in it. They just took 2 out of 3 from the Yankees this past weekend after a very bad week against the Nationals and the Marlins. Maybe they figured something out. And I know that, yeah, they could go 2-1. Either team can go 2-1 in this 3-game series and still seem in it. But it does seem like whoever, if the Cardinals could take 2 out of 3 from them this week, maybe just push the Mets back far enough to where they're no longer a factor.
Yeah, I think that's a good point you make. With this season, I've kind of learned one thing: don't look too far ahead if you're a Cardinal, because just when you think they've turned the corner, they'll lay an egg on you, and then you're just like, "Damn, what happened?" So I'm looking at tonight's game, but as you speak, you could put some distance between yourself and the Mets. San Diego's reeling. Now the issue with those guys, they have some pretty toughies on their schedule. Before it's all said and done. And Cincinnati, I don't know what to say about them. So your point is a valid one, but I don't want to look too far down the road, because as we tried to do this before, just when you think, all right, here we come, and then all of a sudden you just have one that you never saw coming, and that's what we got to be careful of.
If we want a scoreboard watch right now, I mean, this past weekend, it was easy. It was the Reds were in town. You knew what you had to do against them. Everything else, you just kind of looked around and you knew the Dodgers were hopefully going to take care of business against the Padres. But if you want to look ahead at what the Padres have coming up, they first off, they just got swept by the Dodgers. Now they have to go into a 4-game series
with the Giants.
Before coming to St. Louis. So not only that, I mean, you're getting the Padres on the tail end where they had 2 short road trips right up the coast there in California, and then they have to come all the way to the Midwest
with no off day.
Right. That's one of those situations where you look at the calendar, and Claibs, you're around players all the time. You know what those road trips are like to these players. You've been on those road trips with them. By the time they get to St. Louis, they're going to want to be home. They're not going to want to be here in St. Louis after being on the road for a week already in California.
Well, but you're right with regard to the travel and how it can take its toll. But right now, you already have to feel like you're in playoff mode. The travel is always a bugaboo, and they're going to play a game, as I mentioned, with no off days. They'll get into St. Louis 3, 4 in the morning, be at the ballpark by 2 o'clock, maybe 3, and have to try and figure out a way to beat somebody. And oh, by the way, their pitching staff is chewed up immensely. So they're going to be looking for volunteers. So you're right with regard to San Diego's plight. And this is a team who apparently thought they were only going to play 60 games by the way they used up their pitching early, and they've never recovered from it.
And then I'm going to keep looking even further onto this schedule, because after that, they have the Giants again. They have a weird 3-game set against the Braves where they also have to finish a game before that even starts.
Mm-hmm.
They're going to start that series in the bottom of the 5th inning as the away team at Petco Park to finish a game that started in Atlanta. And then they end again with Dodgers and Giants. So I think if you look at this, you can almost look at the Padres as being they have the most work ahead of them. They have the toughest schedule, I think, in all of baseball. I mean, that has to be the toughest schedule in all of baseball right now down the stretch to end the season, to where we might get to October 1st, and that 3-game series against the Giants might not mean anything when you look at the teams that they're going up against these next 2 weeks.
No, you're right, but I think though every game is going to mean something, because I just don't think this thing is going to be decided until the last weekend of the season. So, everybody's going to have their highs and lows, and that's why they're fighting for a wild card spot. That's why they hover around 500, because they haven't been able to find the consistency. And I just don't see where that's going to change between now and the end of the regular season. So I just tell everybody, stay tuned, because everybody's going to have their highs and lows, and the Cardinals will be one of them as well.
It's 100% going to come down to how the Cardinals play the Cubs, one of the worst teams in baseball, and how the Reds play the Pirates, one of the worst teams in baseball. I mean, that's what you're looking at the tail end of all this.
No, you're right. You're absolutely right.
So Another thing too, we were talking game 163, 164, whatever. As you come down the end here, that wild card game right now, if you look at the standings, the Dodgers and Giants are still going back and forth for that NL West title. They are 15 games ahead of the Padres and Reds right now as far as that wild card game goes. It's so fascinating to see how much that's going to mean to those two teams to get out of that wild card game, because instantly, if the Cardinals somehow get into that second wild card spot, they immediately have the exact same record as the Dodgers or Giants in that one game. And it just comes down to that one game then. So all of the way that those two teams pulled ahead suddenly means very little.
It's going to be unfortunate for somebody. But with that said, if you get the Giants in the wild card, I like your chances better, because I don't know if their pitching is as good as what we've seen, but apparently it is. But the Cardinals dealt with them out in Frisco and should have won all 3 games. Lost one. But the Dodgers really probably, in my opinion, are the best team man for man that I've seen. And their pitching is lights out, and they got a really nasty bullpen. And they don't have a problem going along with their bullpenners. Everybody pitches in that staff. So that would be the team I would like to miss if I could. Take my chances with the Giants.
Yeah, Max Scherzer, once again yesterday, he reached 3,000 strikeouts in his career. Given his age, I think that we're going to see Max Scherzer reach 4,000 strikeouts at some point in his. You laugh. Do you think you don't think that's possible, or?
No. I think Scherzer is a great pitcher. He's not going to be around for 4,000. You know what I mean? That he'd have to pitch another 5 years minimum. Excuse me, minimum, and have 200 strikeout years every year. I just don't see that.
How old is he right now?
36, 37.
I thought he was 35.
Well,
I thought he was younger than me.
I don't see it.
He is. All right, he's 37. All right.
Okay. You want to back that one back?
I'll back that one up. Okay. I thought he was 35, 36. Right. 37. Okay. I'll back that one up.
Now, that doesn't mean he can't get to 3,500.
He's what, 19th all time as reaching that 3,000 strikeouts. So yeah, 3,500. I mean, he's a Hall of Famer.
Yes, no doubt. And you know what? In my opinion, he's a Cy Young Award winner in the National League.
Because of what he's done with the Dodgers since he's 8-0. I should say the Dodgers are 8-0 in his starts since he's gone over there. So
he's been a difference maker, especially without Kershaw and Trevor Bauer. He's now been the guy that they look to. So, and he's been the difference maker. Let's face it. If it wasn't for Scherzer, the Dodgers might be catchable as far as the division or as far as the first wild card spot is concerned. If it wasn't for Scherzer, the Giants wouldn't be looking over their shoulder in the manner that they are. So I think he's been the key factor on that ball club. And it's going to be interesting to see what happens. But I think he's a Cy Young Award winner.
Before we get away from all the baseball talk, Claibs, quickly, your thoughts on what Harrison Bader wore yesterday to catch the team flight out to New York.
Well, he's got a yellow suit like that too. Yellow. He's got a maroon suit like that too. As it was once said, I won't mention the player. He had on a maroon suit, and a player said, "You know what? If you had a name tag on, I thought you were one of the flight attendants." But I give him credit, and you know what? Here's the deal with this. I take pride in how I look when I represent my family, my team, whatever. And I appreciate a guy wearing a shirt and tie because this is business, and he wants to look like a businessman, and I appreciate it because we've had some guys that have come through here that would show up on the plane dressed like they just changed the oil on their car, okay? And it was such an unprofessional look that, you know, I'm glad to see Bader and Flaherty and Paul DeYoung and some other guys who step on the plane. Now, granted, they're still trying to catch me when I step on the plane, but I appreciate the competition.
I think Flaherty went with a Randy Moss jersey yesterday.
Well, he's a fantasy football guy.
I was gonna
It's
say it's
football
week 1 of the
season.
NFL
Yeah.
season, so that's acceptable for that. But I think I saw him wearing I think I saw him in a Randy Moss Vikings jersey yesterday. So I
It's
liked that.
possible.
I don't know where the tie is because he usually represents SoCal with whatever he wears. So I was trying to figure out what the connection was with Randy Moss, but maybe that's just the one SoCal thing that he's not a fan of, or the one outside of SoCal thing he's not a fan of. Hey, this is Lunch with Claibs and Joe. A lot of baseball talk there in the first 20 minutes of the show. Back with some pigskin right after this.
Every day, Ameren, Illinois works to deliver reliable energy throughout the state to on-the-go families, in-the-know grandparents, and busy students. But did you know we also have ways to manage your energy? Paperless billing, outage notifications, pick a due date, auto pay, and so much more. So no matter who you are or how you use your energy, there's an option that's right for you. Learn more at amerenillinois.com/options.
Back here on Lunch with Claibs and Joe, powered by Ameren, Illinois, driven by Munganass St. Louis Acura, and sponsored by Ryan Kelly, the home loan expert. Find him online at thehomeloanexpert.com. You can get more baseball talk coming up at 2 o'clock today. Bob Ramsey and I will go live with Daily Cards Live, presented by Munganass and Royal Banks of Missouri. Hopefully by 2 o'clock, we have the lineups for today. First of a 3-game series against the Mets. Also available on claibsonline.com is Huddle Up with Howard Richards and Mike Claiborne, doing a weekly podcast now, which you can hear on all of the podcast platforms and also see on our YouTube page. And every Friday morning, you can see the recording of that, as well as Mike and Howard will break down the upcoming Mizzou football game and all other kind of football talk. What did Howard? What did he have to say about the Mizzou Tigers matchup against Kentucky, and how did it play out according to what he thought he was going to see?
Well, I think it played out just like the way we thought it would, where it was going to be a game that the defense had to make some plays. They didn't. And we knew Kentucky was a better team. And, I think it kind of played out. Now, I picked Missouri to win because I thought maybe they had enough offense to maybe steal one. But the defense was the disappointment. And I can't blame it on coaching. They just don't have enough players yet. I mean, they couldn't stop a nosebleed, let alone anything else. And if you watch, their interior just get shredded on every play. They run counters, they run traps. And the one thing that you were always taught, you don't stand up and look around. You got to stay low. And these guys are getting blown out. So there's some technique issues that need to be addressed. But overall, a disappointing game when you get it handed to you like that up front. By the way, how do we do on the football this weekend?
I was just about to bring those up here as we get into the football stuff. I do want to say this. Anybody that has become a fan recently of what Eli Drinkwitz is doing in Mizzou cannot let a loss like that to Kentucky blur their visions of what this Mizzou football program is going to be. They have to realize that all of the big announcements, all of the big signings that Mizzou has received these past few months have nothing to do with this year's team. Yeah. That this is looking into the future of that, and Mizzou might lose 3 more games this season, maybe 4 more games this season, and none of that has anything to do with how Eli Drinkwitz will do as a head coach with this team. These aren't his players yet, and you also have to realize that last year he had to coach during the COVID season. So everything that he's doing is going to keep building up, and you have, if you're a fan of Mizzou football, you have to have faith that he is going to make great leaps of progression over the next couple years.
I agree.
So here we go. Football picks for week 2 of the season.
Oh,
yeah.
Damn.
There you go. 7-1.
I lost the game.
The game that you lost, Claibs,
it was the Missouri game.
Was the Missouri game.
Yeah.
The games that we picked this week, we went 5 games. We went Mizzou and Kentucky, Browns Chiefs, Cardinals Titans, Chargers Washington football team, Dolphins, Patriots.
I bet the two that probably most guys whiffed on was the Arizona game.
We had you and Brian Hoffman were the only two that picked the Cardinals to win that game. You and Howard Richards were the only ones that picked the Chargers to win against Washington. I was the only one that picked the Browns, and that one looked pretty good. The first half of the game.
Let me ask you something, and I'm glad you brought this up. Is this going to be the next new rivalry in the NFL? The Browns and Kansas City? Now, granted, they won't play each other in conference. They're not in the same conference. But the last two games we've seen have been must watch. And Cleveland keeps knocking on the door, and they make the one mistake each time that costs them the game. But, man, you have to like the way they're both built and how they could be around for another 3 to 5 years minimum.
I think you have to look at the one game that we didn't have on the picks this week was the Bills and Steelers. And that game, you saw the Steelers come back and win for the Bills. And I think those four teams right there, when you get into the AFC divisional round of the playoffs this year, it wouldn't shock me one bit if those are the four teams that are sitting there in the AFC divisional round for the playoffs.
And here's the thing that we probably don't talk enough about. All four of those teams can play anywhere on anything at any time. I mean, the weather won't bother those teams. The second thing is, and man, you know what? You take special teams for granted until you have a mess up. Now the punter just botched it. I mean, there's no excuse. He took his eye off the ball. A breakdown in protection for Buffalo cost them that game. And, we take it for granted, man, and how important special teams are and lanes and all the other things that go with it. And every team's got a new gadget that they like to try and implement. But I think, as you mentioned, those four teams, certainly it wouldn't be a shock. Okay. It wouldn't be a shock if those teams were in that position postseason wise.
Yeah. And you still have, when you look at other teams around the AFC outside of those, the Ravens will play tonight. You had the Titans who lost to Arizona, but with Derrick Henry as your running back, and you look at Ryan Tannehill being able to throw to Julio Jones and AJ Brown.
That's if he doesn't get killed, because I got to feel like today, and I forgot who the left tackle is for Tennessee.
Is it Taylor Lewan? Lewan, is that?
No, I don't think so. Well, it might be.
I know he's on that line. I don't know if he's the left tackle or.
I'll look it up here. But you talk about a rough afternoon, and he was just getting beat. Oh, they didn't give him any help. But at this point, if you see that this guy's having a field day, you got to have a tight end or a back in motion to try and chip this guy. You can't let him just pin his ears back and just tee off on a guy, especially if this tackle is giving it up early. Because I think he gave up 3 sacks in the first half.
It's Taylor Lewan, or Taylor Lewan, the left tackle for the Titans, who has had his issues in the past, who has gotten beat a lot in the past, and he's very vocal when he does get beat. He accepts it. He doesn't make excuses. He goes out there. He says that he needs to get better, but he's also done this quite a few times. Yeah. But he's a former first round pick. He's kind of the leader of that line. So I think they give him a little slack. But Chandler Jones had a hell of a game. You can't take
it away from him. You're right.
You can't take away what Chandler Jones did. And I think you saw, if you watched any of that game yesterday, it seemed like any time the Red Zone channel was going to that game, they were mentioning J.J. Watt's name, who's now on that defensive line for the Cardinals. So whatever it is, however old J.J. Watt is, however many snaps that he has under his belt in his career, he was still bringing it in week 1 yesterday, which had to have helped the rush on the right side for Chandler Jones. So I think you saw that the Cardinals are a very, very good team, and that entire NFC West. You want to talk about just teams in the that might be there at the AFC by the end of the year? That NFC West is going to be a lot of fun.
There's not a weak link out there. The Rams are going to be pretty competitive. Seattle went into Indy yesterday and just That was out of hand. We just
And
talked about Arizona.
Russell Wilson just, I mean, every year I kind of overlook him as being an elite quarterback in the NFL. And then he goes out there and puts up
Mhm.
one of the best
No,
numbers
you're
of any
right.
quarterback in the NFL.
You're right. I think a lot of people make that mistake. And then you look up and you say, wait a minute, he did what? And how many times at the beginning of the year do we talk about, hey, this guy's an MVP candidate? It happens every year. Now, the problem is his offensive line sometimes lets him down. He doesn't get the time and protection he needs. Running game has been a little suspect, but overall, he's still got a guy that makes that team go. And he did yesterday. And I hope that he can continue to do it. But back to your original statement, that West might be as deep as any division in the NFL.
I mean, the 49ers went out there and they put up a hell of a lot of points against the Lions yesterday, too. And you saw that not only are they going to go with Jimmy Garoppolo as their quarterback, they have packages there in place for Trey Lance to come in and make an impact. So they are slowly working him in, which we also saw the Bears do last night with Justin Fields.
Yeah, I think you're going to see more of that. And I think that's a better way compared to just throwing a guy in the fire and, hey, the plays that we run for this guy, you should run them too. I think, if you have enough time from a practice standpoint and the way practices are now, you can probably get away with it because of the lack of contact. But overall, I think you'll see more of that because let's face it, I think these quarterbacks are closer to being ready to play in the NFL than they've ever been before because everybody's doing the same RPOs and things of that nature. So it really comes down to more of a terminology issue than actual play execution. If you understand the terminology, that's the play you ran against, Vanderbilt last year is a play that's same play, it's just different terminology.
So you have all the good that we just mentioned. Let's talk about the bad, which I think jumps out the most of any team this weekend were the Packers. They had the most drama all offseason with Aaron Rodgers, with any social media posts about the last dance and everything that went around up there in Green Bay. And then they come out and score 3 points.
Well, it's obviously a concern, but I'm a believer that you don't know what you have until the middle of October. So I'm going to be like Aaron Rodgers, relax. The things that we saw against New Orleans yesterday are all fixable. I think the big key is making sure they get that offensive line squared away because their big left tackle is not there. So they've got to get that taken care of. And I think everything will fall into place. They have too many good players on that team to think that this is going to be a weekly situation for them.
So there you have it. You look at the screen there. You see what the standings are right now for this was week 1.
Hey, I got news for you, Joe.
Was week 0. This is week 1 of the of our football picks this week. We'll throw another list of games out there. I'll send out all the games for you guys tomorrow. Andy Hanselman and I will give the picks during Weekend Joe. And then you and I will talk next week about how
I increased my lead.
Is that okay?
Yeah. I'm just going to tell you, I don't see much of a change at the top. There's obviously room for improvement for some of you other guys, but I don't really see things changing much at the top.
Yeah. Howard Richards had a good week. He came back and had himself a good week in week 2. Frank is struggled in 2 weeks, and I had a bad week. Yeah,
you did.
I had another bad week. So we'll work on that, and we'll see what kind of improvements can be made, and have those picks for you coming up on Friday on Weekend Joe. We will take another break. When we come back, we'll wrap things up here on this edition of Lunch with Claibs and Joe right here on claibsonline.com.
St. Louis Acura is excited to announce the opening of our newly remodeled service lounge. We sell pre-owned vehicles of all makes and models and take pride in servicing what we sell. We offer free pickup and delivery service and a complimentary car wash and vacuum with every service. We also have a full-service reconditioning shop on site that can repair dents, bumpers, and wheels. As the nation's only 29-time Acura Precision Team winner for customer satisfaction, we work every day to make St. Louis Acura better than ever for you.
Back here, final segment of Lunch with Claibs and Joe, powered by Ameren, Illinois, driven by Munganess St. Louis Acura, and sponsored by Ryan Kelly, the home loan expert. Find him online at thehomeloanexpert.com. Claibs, I want to wrap up this week. I know you were at the Ascension Charity Classic at Norwood Hills this past weekend, along with 51,000 other fans, which was a record for a first-time PGA Tour Champions event. So St. Louis once again showed that they are much more than a baseball town, as they showed up again for a very very good cause.
Yeah, they did. And kudos to everybody who was behind putting this thing together. They did a phenomenal job. I'm proud to say I'm a member of Norwood, and couldn't have been happier with how things were run and how things were set up. Course played fair, 10 under. It was probably a good number. And I think the thing that stood out to me was the access you have at watching golfers on the range and doing their thing. And you can walk with certain guys. And some of these golfers you may remember from their heyday on the original PGA Tour. And then there's some other guys, like I was telling you earlier, there are a couple of guys, the leaders going into Sunday. Had they been on the driving range next to me, I would have known who they were. But all of a sudden, you started to see Furyk and Dickie Pride, and obviously the winner in David Toms ends up winning it. But there was some real good golf out there, and I was really happy with it. And I think the key here is this is the only event other than Augusta National where the tournament is going to be held there in consecutive years. You know, I mean, they got a 4-year contract, and hopefully they can extend it. But point being, you know, this is going to be their home for the next 4 years. And other than Augusta National, it doesn't happen anywhere else in golf.
So there have been rumors of another tour event, of a PGA Tour event coming to St. Louis, right? I think over the next couple years or so.
Yeah.
I know there's been talk of that. And we saw a few years ago at the PGA Championship how well crowds came out to watch that. So it's shown that. And then also, a couple weeks ago, it was also announced that Worldwide Technology Raceway over at Gateway is getting a NASCAR event in 2022. So it's nice to see that, okay, the NFL left, we're not getting the NFL back, and that lawsuit's going to continue, but you're seeing other big events. You're seeing MLFs, you're seeing golf, you're seeing NASCAR, you're seeing other big events for all of the sports fans in St. Louis to take in and have something to look forward to.
Throw in the Olympic trials as well, and how eventful that was. St. Louis is a good sports town. And I think it shows when you don't have a team, or you don't have in the individual sports that you just mentioned, we don't really have a base. We just come out and support it. And that says a lot about the makeup of the community. And I hope it just continues to grow.
What, did you read the Sam Farmer article?
You know what? I really don't care about that lawsuit. I'm at the point now, by the time they get that settled, your kid will be in college. And I'm out of, I don't care. I don't care.
It's not going to be that long. I am looking forward to, I fully plan to be in Los Angeles in February during Super Bowl week. And I'm sure I will run into one of them as they're there gloating about their new stadium, and just to bring it up, just to see what they might say.
You can have at it. I'm good.
I will.
It's a phenomenal. Here's the one thing that I don't want to overlook. And I was out there a couple of times where that stadium was under construction. I've never seen anything that size in my life, other than maybe the Pentagon. I mean, this thing is massive, man, and it was well thought out. I mean, it doesn't have many flaws in it, and I think that that's something that you can't take away. Now, obviously, when you spend $4.5-5 billion, you should be able to get it right. But it is a facility that I understand because they can make more money doing that than they could ever here in St. Louis. For anything we could imagine in constructing, not going to match up with what they can do with that thing. Now, my question is, $5 billion is a lot of money. When do you start to make your money back on that? How far down the road do you have to be before you start realizing, this investment that you made?
They have the Super Bowl this year, and they have the Super Bowl in February. They have WrestleMania in April. They have all of the Olympics coming up. They have national championships in college coming up. I think they will make that up fairly soon.
Okay, we'll see. I hope they do. I mean, I don't want to see anybody fail.
I mean, $6 billion is a lot of money to make up, but they are definitely putting the events there in place to make that.
I would say you're right, but then again, neither one of us knows what they charge for the facility.
That's true.
So I don't know what the tally is on that. Obviously, it's one that and again, you're not going to make $6 billion back in a year or 5 years or whatever, but you certainly want to be on the right path. But it's a phenomenal facility, and we're going to see. This may be the last of them for a while. I just don't see teams and certainly cities making an investment in facilities like this anymore. I mean, because especially football's a TV sport. And now you run the risk of getting the hell beat out of you when you do go to some of these games in LA. That's going to turn off some people as well.
I didn't see any videos of any fights.
You haven't seen
yesterday.
any yet.
I haven't seen any yet. So those usually make the rounds pretty quick. So that's a good sign. That's a good sign for week 1 of the NFL season. Claibs, what do you have coming up this week?
Well, we're going to have something with Dr. Rick later in the week where we're going to visit with a guy who trains guys who work in the pit crew. Jerome Evans, one of the greatest running backs that ever played in the St. Louis area from now defunct Assumption High School, scheduled to visit with us. I am hoping to do a sit down with the Doobie Brothers on Wednesday. Now, the COVID issue may come into play because they're just now back on the road. As a matter of fact, I think they open up in Kansas City tonight. They had shut the tour down. So we're trying to figure out if there's some sort of reasonable access. And of course, Huddle Up with Howard we'll do on Thursday. Alex Ferrario is going to join us. We'll talk some hockey with him as the Blues season is just around the corner. And I'm scheduled to visit with Craig Berube tomorrow. And hopefully we'll have a chance to get that up and running. So we got a lot of things going on.
And I know on the pregame this week, I know you had a chance. You had some nice interviews last week that you'll be hearing. Well, you did hear on the pregame, and you will hear on the pregame. Lee Smith and John Daly, 2 of your interview guests last week.
So yeah, we had a good time with both of them. So, and knowing Lee as long as I've known him and just great to see him. Didn't know John as well, but I rolled out one name and it made him smile. I said, Jay Randolph Jr. And he just kind of stood back for a second. And he started grinning and just shaking his head. He said, man, those were some days. He said, it was days like that. I wasn't sure if I'd even be on the planet today. I mean, so they went hard. Those guys went real hard. And hopefully we'll let Jay tell that story one night. About
a lot of darts smoke between those two.
Oh, yeah. And that's Daly's problem now. He says he can't stop smoking. So it was fun. So we got a lot of fun things coming up.
All right. That's going to do it for us this week here on Lunch with Claibs and Joe. If you missed any of it, you can go to the YouTube page and watch it. Also a replay later tonight at 5 o'clock before the Cardinal game. Also, the Daily Cards Live coming up at 2 o'clock with me and Bob Ramsey. So make sure to check that out as well. For Mike Claiborne, I'm Joe Roderick. This has been Lunch with Claibs and Joe, powered by Ameren, Illinois, driven by Munganess St. Louis Acura, and also sponsored by this man, Ryan Kelly, the home loan expert.
You know, the only thing faster than this supersonic golf cart are the closing times at thehomeloanexpert.com. Mortgage rates on the 2s, and we have a 21-day closing guarantee. Apply online today at thehomeloanexpert.com.